So I want to just kind of jump back to something that Anjane said. And did I pronounce that right, Anjane? Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
that's perfect. I'm impressed, Joe.
Yeah, thanks. Oh, that's my first hat trick for the day. Um, this whole thing about value, right? And I have been listening to that word for a long time, and I've examined it a lot. And I think there's a lot to be said about people just kind of saying it, but not really understanding what it is. And I'm not talking about you right now, Anthony. I'm just saying this because you brought it up. Okay. But I've been around this word a lot. And so I'm going to offer you a simple definition of how I interpret value when I'm sitting in front of a customer. Here's what I can do for you that you can't do for yourself that makes your life better. Okay. And I think we often forget that simple little anecdote about why people need us, you know? And our job as presenters, salespeople, consultants, whatever badge you want to wear, is to show them that, hey, there's something about me that's going to make your life better. And you need me to do that. That's called selling. And it's also competing against your competition. And I like the fact you brought that up today because if I do my job today, you guys are going to leave in an hour going, okay, now I have something that I can legitimately add value to the customer's life. Okay, so thank you for bringing that up. So if you don't have something to write with, you need to grab that if you want to. And there'll be some things to write down. Just very simple notes, okay? Nothing super complicated. So we're going to start with this right here. 3 words: beginning, middle, end. And I'm starting here because that really is the proper context, the proper perspective, the proper way to think about internal rate of return. I've been teaching this for a long, long time, as many of you probably know. And when I was, my first indoctrination to internal rate of return was when I was in a graduate program at WSU in the 80s. And it was not presented well. And to top it off, my presenter was a teacher's assistant, a TA, who was from a foreign country, which is fine, except he didn't speak English. And that sucked because I'm paying to go to college and I can't understand the guy. That wasn't cool. I actually talked to the department head about that. But anyway, so it was super difficult for me when I was first doing this. But I've taught enough times that I want to start with this basic idea of the beginning, the middle, and the end. And so this is what I call the investment life cycle. Okay. And if you stop and think about this, it applies to each, any, and every investment you'll ever make in anything for the rest of your natural life. 3 things happen. Number one, you buy it. Number two, you own it. And number three, one of two things always happens at the end. And these things have to happen. They always happen. You either sell it or you die. And that is what I call the investment life cycle. And that applies to real estate, stocks, bonds, annuities, gold, Bitcoin, anything, 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 everything. Okay. Beginning, middle, end. So that's the first thing to remember about internal rate of return. Okay. The second thing to remember about internal rate of return is that it is a cash model, not a price model. Okay. So when we're going about this internal rate of return business, the most difficult part of any IRR analysis, especially in real estate, is to get the correct cash flow information. Okay. That's the part that takes the longest. I'm going to put an Excel template in the chat here in just a second, and then we'll play with that together. But of all the data collection things that you need to do, getting the cash flow measured properly is the most difficult part of it. Okay. But this is a cash model, not a price model. Okay. Now, I'm going to pause there again. When I teach Does It Pencil Course 1, and here's a shameless plug, I'm teaching it on the 13th and 14th through the Seattle King County Realtors, and you can register at nwrealtor.com or tell your friends. But when I start the course and what I call the opening salvo, the third thing that I talk about are the 5, one for each finger, benefits of owning real estate as an investment. Okay. And this is also a really, really important thing to think about. And it's integral and it integrates into the internal rate of return model. Okay. So let me write down these benefits, and I suggest that you write them down as well, because the model captures all the benefits. So the benefits are appreciation, cash flow, mortgage reduction, taxes, and leverage.
Joe, you're not sharing screen, just FYI.
Yeah, I am.
He is.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
somebody not? It should be up there.
I can't see it, but okay, there's a different tab. Okay, my apologies.
Okay. So just real quick, we all understand appreciation. I bought it for this. I sold it for that. The spread is my profit. Okay. Everybody gets that. Cash flow, as I just said, is the most difficult part of the analysis to do. And I'll expand this a little bit later, but just very quickly for now, just to listen to it. The cash flow is measured by the income minus the vacancy plus the other income minus the expenses minus the debt. And I'll write that down on the spreadsheet. But my point now is there's a specific formula that we use, especially
Now,
in real estate, to measure the cash flow. Critical skill must have to do a correct and complete IRR analysis. Okay. So it's a cash model. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. The beginning is the cash that you put down to acquire the asset. Okay. It might be the down payment. It might be the down payment plus other costs that you pay, or it might be the price if you're paying all cash. But the point is, in the beginning, it's all the cash that you put down, whatever that is. In the middle, it's the cash flow, which one more time, I'll write it down, but just to hear it again, income minus vacancy plus other income minus expenses minus debt. That gives you something called the pre-tax cash flow. That's the middle. The end is what I call, and it's 4 words, write these down: pre-tax sales proceeds. Pre-tax sales proceeds. Those occur when you sell the asset, or if you're just doing a valuation, not intending to sell. All right. But the thing to remember about internal rate of return is that it is what I call a closed model, meaning it does not go on in perpetuity, meaning you are establishing a specific holding term for the asset. That's super important when you do IRR. It can't just go on indefinitely. You have to stop it at a point in future time. Now, once I learned how to do internal rate of return, like 35 years ago, and started spending more time with it, what I realized was that the big risk that you have with internal rate of return and forecasting is actually the end piece, because the end is where you recognize the appreciation. And if you are buying a property that is, I put money down to buy it, called cash out, And if I have negative cash flow, negative cash flow, negative cash flow, say over 3 years, that's the middle. At the end, I have to get a solid pop or it was a stupid investment. Okay. Since about 2003, so about the last 20 years, what we've seen generally, this is the trend, because I'm more of a national guy, on the coastal markets, Seattle to San Diego, Manhattan to Miami. Some stuff in Texas, not really, but generally speaking, the coastal properties, those are appreciation plays. And for many, many years now, we'll say 20, I've watched specific transactions. I've been asked to analyze them. I've been hired as a consultant. And these small money deals, and I say small money, I'm going to call it new purchase money under a million, depending on your area. Most of them negative cash flow. Not all, but I will say most. Okay. So if you're an investor and you're going to buy this, you're buying native cash flow, you have to get appreciation. Or why would you do it? Okay. But here's the thing about the appreciation, and that comes at the end of the beginning, middle, end scenario. And we forget about this because we become so punch drunk on it, mostly because of the affect of the lowering of interest rates, thanks to the criminals at the Fed during the COVID. And we're still dealing with that. And my forecast is it'll be about a 10-year play before that all washes through. We're about 3 or 4 years into it now. Anyway, to recognize the appreciation, you have to sell the asset. And people don't think about that. Like, oh, it's going up 20% a year. Well, that's cool. But how long is that going to happen? And that happened during the COVID time because of interest rates. And suddenly interest rates went up. And in many markets, the appreciation stopped or reversed. Not as drastically as I thought it would, by the way, but at some measurable level. Okay, and I'm going to stop there for a second. So that last comment I made about appreciation slowing down. So Jeff, you're in the San Jose greater area for people that don't know Jeff, just kind of in the Silicon Valley area. Is that a true statement about your market that post-COVID, you've not seen appreciation rates that mirrored COVID? Is that true?
No, I'd say things are still going up.
Good.
It's just a line. There's, good jobs, good income here. Affordability is really low, but
So you haven't seen a change in your market.
not a drastic one.
So you're still seeing 20% year over year?
It may have slowed a bit, but we're seeing, it's probably down. It's probably in the, between 10 and 20, depending on the area.
Okay. What do you think, Kelly, out on the peninsula? What are you seeing for appreciation rates post-COVID?
No, they're back down to maybe 4%.
What do you mean 84%?
No, 4.
Oh, 4%. Okay.
4.
So Jim, what about in the Boise area? What are you seeing?
Yeah, probably 3.5.
Okay. So there's going to be outliers, but as a general comment, I think that's the case because affordability was quashed pretty severely because of the rise of interest rates post-COVID. Okay.
Yeah. But we
So
had to
anyway,
have that come to a stop. We couldn't
well,
sustain that. That
yeah,
was it.
for
I don't know how that's
absolutely.
happening for Jeff. If you're going up 20% a year, there's no way. Only billionaires could live there.
Well, you guys didn't hear this probably, but Elon Musk made a money printing machine. It lives in the Silicon Valley, and they just hand it out all day down there. That was a joke.
We don't call it real estate for nothing.
Right. So maybe on another day we can talk about a little bit of the history of real estate appreciation and the Fed and that kind of thing. But anyway, my point today is this: beginning, middle, end, and the end is where you pick up the appreciation. Okay. Now, here's a little sub note about that end piece, and this is really, 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 really important. Let's say that I'm looking at buying something and holding it for 4 years, just to pick a number. Okay. In the fourth year, I will receive both cash flows, and sales proceeds. Okay. So in that fourth year, that final year, a makeup example, or whatever the last year of your forecast is, what's really, really important is you've got to add those cash flows to the sales proceeds when you populate your model. When I put the spreadsheet up, I'll show that to you. But for now, that's a really strong note to make. In the last year of ownership, whatever that year is, you must add the cash flows with the sales proceeds because they both occur in the same time period, which would be the last year of the hold. Okay, so when you press the button and you have all the stuff populated and you solve for internal rate of return, you get a one number answer. And that one number answer represents what I call the overall annualized rate of return from beginning to middle to end. And people ask me all the time, well, is that an average? No, it's not. And it's not because on most of the analysis that you do with IRR using something called a T account, the weight, W-E-I-G-H-T weight, most of it comes at the end, especially if the play is on appreciation. So if you fill up your T account, you go, oh, this is cool, I'm going to solve for IRR, and you get 20% as an example. And then you look at the nature of the cash flows. If the last one is huge and the ones in the middle are negative or small, then most of that IRR came from that last period, which happens all the time with these smaller properties, all the time. So the affect that appreciation has on most, and I'm saying smaller investment properties, is very, very significant. So that tells us a couple things as operators. One is it's significant, and two, if I'm going to sit here today and look at this asset and say, well, I've got to figure what it would be worth sometime in the future because it's a closed model. Whatever assumptions that you use about the future are going to have a lot of bearing on the overall IRR. Okay. All right. So before I get into the spreadsheet thing, let me just kind of come back and rewind a little bit. And I was thinking about this morning, and I talked to a friend, colleague, and contemporary of mine in Atlanta. His name's Bill Whitehead. He's been on this call a few times. If you remember him, he's got a kind of a rich voice, and he's from Atlanta. I've known Bill for probably almost 30 years. Met him in Idaho. Used to have a girlfriend in Sun Valley. And he's been a very good friend of mine, kind of a mentor. And we were talking yesterday, and he said, you know, I think, Joe, my experience of listening to as many years as I have is that you kind of have this knack of being able to take complex stuff and make it simple. I'm like, yeah, I've heard that before. That is kind of my superpower. So I'm going to exercise my superpower right now. IRR can be pretty daunting and pretty overwhelming, especially if you've never seen it before or haven't seen it for a while. Okay. But here's what I think is a very important grounding thing to remember about IRR. IRR is a tool to help people make a decision. That's all it is. Okay. And the decision is going to be one of three things. Should I buy? Should I hold? Should I sell? Those are always the three decisions. All right. Decisions are binary. A decision is a yes or a no. A decision is not a maybe. Like if you're sitting there at a listing appointment and the seller says, well, I'm kind of going to sell. Well, that's not an answer. You either are or you're not. And if you're working with a buyer, you're either going to make an offer with a specific terms and price or you're not. Okay, that's just how this works. And that's important for us to remember because those are decisions that clients make, and all decisions are binary. There is no middle. It's like the little Yoda guy said, there is no try, only do or do not. And he was right. Okay, so listen to me, listen to Yoda. He's a smart little fella. Okay. So that's the first piece. The second piece is this, and I'll frame this in the form of a question. I'll ask Christine first. What makes people happy? You're a big thinker. I thought I'd ask you the big question first.
All right. Obviously, when no drama, peace in your family, health, and being able to make a good living. I mean, be able to enjoy the things that make us happy.
I love the fact your first answer was no drama.
Yeah. Yeah. No
Good.
drama. Well, because of the rentals, that's the thing. When you own investment properties, especially the single families and duplexes, I mean, I've talked to so many of my investors, and a lot of them say that they spend 70% of their time on single family, residential, and make 30% of their income. Whereas with commercial properties, they spend 30% of their time and make 70% of their income. Because commercial isn't nearly as much drama as when you're dealing with families and such, broken pipes, what have you. So yeah, no drama is always top up there on my list.
Yeah. Okay. Well, my argument is people are people, whether they're in a commercial or a residential building, they're going to bring their drama with them. But that's a story for another day. Michael Coe, what makes people happy? What's your answer to that, sir?
No drama is a big one, but
You like that one?
but yeah, beyond that, what makes them happy?
Let me narrow
is
this down a little bit. What makes people happy when they're investing? Let's put some guardrails on that.
profit.
Close. Doug, what do you think?
Definitely not losing anything.
Getting closer. Tim, what do you think?
Gain.
Closer.
Low risk.
All part of the mix. Here's my answer. Okay. My answer is you've met their expectations, met or exceeded. Okay. If you are going to walk into the world and be an investor or work with people who want to be investors, the first thing you need to do, in my opinion, is to establish their expectations. Okay. It's first thing. Simple, but not easy. And when I work with people who advise me about investing my money, I steer the conversation that way because sometimes they don't know that that really is the first thing. See, I would argue this, and your comment about people is well taken, Christine, especially my current and probably last experience with single family residences. Oh my God. I mean, so just real quick, so some of you guys know we've been working on this house for about a year. Our lot is under contract, and that's supposed to close next week, and that's awesome. But getting rid of this goddamn house has just been the hardest thing. And one of the reasons is a broker will go over there to show it, and conveniently, the night before, some homeless people, and I'm not kidding you, has broken the windows so they can break into the house and do their drugs and whatever. And, all that kind of thing. 5 times I've been over there. I just want to get rid of the single family thing and just do lots. That's kind of where I'm at. Anyway. So the beginning, the middle, and the end. All right. You have to think about this that way. You have to be able to isolate the cash flows. And once you get to those first 2 steps, the last step is pretty easy, and that is just populate what's called a T account.